2022 at 2 p.m. We normally start with a roll call, but we'll forego that, noting that Councillor Veith is not with us today, but all the rest of us are. We would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which many of us are gathered today is land traditionally cared for by the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Neutral peoples. We also acknowledge the enduring presence and deep traditional knowledge and philosophies of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land today. This present has endured in spite of our significant efforts to erase it and a lack of commitment to safeguard our neighbors. On Friday, communities across Canada will observe National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. This year, the theme is Remembering the Children. All Canadians are encouraged to memorialize the identified and still missing children lost in the residential school system and honor survivors and their families. Learning and commemorating the truth of our history from First Nations, Métis, and Inuit knowledge keepers is an important part of this path to reconciliation. We encourage all residents of our city and region to take time on September 30th to stop, reflect, learn, and act. Attend one of our memorial events that have been planned in our community. Wear orange. Donate to a local Indigenous-led organization. As a city, we recognize the importance of setting aside a day to focus on reconciliation. We are also mindful that challenging colonial systems must not be limited to a single day, and we continue to commit to a reconciliation journey that is both long-term and year-round. At the beginning of this council meeting, we pause to think about the needs of our community. May we show wisdom and compassion in all our decisions. I would also like to read another statement from our council. City of Waterloo Council strongly condemns the events related to the death of 22-year-old Mahsa Amini, who died in custody of Iran's morality police after her arrest for allegedly failing to comply with Iran's strict Islamic dress code. We also denounce the subsequent violence directed against the peaceful protesters and human rights defenders, demanding accountability for Amini's death, and urge Iranian authorities to avoid further unnecessary violence and to immediately stop the use of lethal force in policing peaceful assemblies. Moving on to our council meeting, could I have disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof from any council member? Seeing none. Don't have to look at that chat line anymore. Moving on to the consent motion. Here we have the 2022 second quarter health and safety report. Does anybody want to pull that for questions? Seeing no one. I see you flinch there, Sandra. You can't flinch anymore. Now I see everything. But I would look for somebody to potentially consider moving it. Councillor Hanmer, seconded by Councillor Freeman. All those in favor of the consent agenda, that carries unanimously with all of us here. Moving forward to staff reports, item A, which is the Community Benefits Charge Bylaw and Parkland Dedication Bylaw Approval. Report prepared for us by Michael Puglisi, and there is no presentation today, but Michael and others are available for questions should there be any. Councillor Freeman up first, Councillor Hanmer second.
Through you, Mayor Jaworski. My question just deals with how it is, if you could just remind everyone how it is you came about to the 4% number in terms of, like, I was thinking that that was a province-led number, but if you could discuss that further, that would be helpful.
Sure. Through you, Mayor Jaworski, to Councillor Freeman, that is a legislated number through the regulations, so there was some back and forth in the early days of the changes. It was thought to be 15% down to 10 at one point. Now it's just lower tiers can collect a maximum of 4% of land value, and that is through the legislation.
Do we have any data to suggest that that would be the standard number that most municipalities are going with, or some going lower than that?
Through you, Mayor Jaworski, most municipalities, from what I understand, and our consultant's been working with other cities as well, most are going with the maximum permissible 4% of land value charge. The odd municipality might be going with a per unit charge, but it still can't be over that maximum 4%. So
Sorry, I just had troubles hearing you. So you said some municipalities might be going with,
a per unit charge, like
okay.
X dollars per unit, but that total still can't be more than 4% of the land value that development's on. But most cities are going with just a maximum permissible at 4% because that's maximizing the amount per development.
Councillor Hammer.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, to Michael. Michael, your report, thank you for the report. It's fairly comprehensive and explains a lot of your background thinking. Can you just share with us the consultation process that you and the team worked through to come up with the report and your recommendations?
Sure. Through you, Mayor Jaworski, to Council. The process we've undertaken is similar to what we've done from previous development charge bylaws, where we engage a group of industry members in the region. We reach out to the Home Builders Association, and they've provided us representatives from low-rise development, high-rise development, engineers, professional planners, the like. Our Economic Development Advisory Committee's got representation. And that's kind of who we've engaged over the summertime. So there's some information in the report about the process and who we've been working with. They've reviewed the draft strategy. They've reviewed a draft bylaw. We've had some engagement back and forth on some of the finer details of the bylaw and kind of ironed things out. So that's been going on through the summer months. And we've had some positive notes and words from the group, and they're appreciative of being in that process ahead of time and kind of seeing things when they're in the draft stage versus seeing it at the end of the line. So that's kind of what we've been doing with the CBC, and that's what we've been following for the previous DC bylaws, and we'll be doing the same thing with the same group for the upcoming DC bylaw update.
Thank you very much. A very comprehensive process and opportunity for the industry to have input into what we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hammer. Further questions from Council? Councillor Freeman, please go ahead.
Sorry, it's still under my same line of questioning. Are our other sister municipalities in the region going with 4%?
Through Mayor Jaworski, Kitchener right now actually isn't. They're not in the process of developing a community benefits charge. So they're kind of sitting on the sidelines at this point. I believe they're thinking about implementing the process soon. But they've historically, from what I understand, have not used the legacy density bonusing to the extent that we have in Waterloo. So that drop in legislation not permitting us to use density bonusing anymore hasn't impacted Kitchener as much as it would us if we didn't implement this tool right away. So we're just kind of keeping that revenue stream available for us. And I think Kitchener it wasn't as crucial of a gap for them. So we're just seeing how things are playing out. And Cambridge, I don't believe, has a CBC at this point from what I've understood.
Okay, seeing no further questions, I'll look for somebody to entertain moving this. Moved by Councillor Henry, second by Councillor Hammer. There being no further questions, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? That's all of us in favor. Thank you very much. Thank you, Michael and team. Next up, item B, the financial impact of COVID-19 update report number 8. And the 2022 surplus deficit projection. It's report prepared for us. I see Mr. Witzel's coming up to take any questions on it. There is no presentation. Does anybody have any questions for Brad or Paul? Seeing Councillor Henry.
Thank you, Mayor. And Paul, I'd asked this question over email. I thought we could just do that live in a new way. I noticed in the surplus deficits piece that the penalty and interest level is lower than it has been recently. Can you sort of comment on the general trend? Because this is one of I think the indicators, a bit of a lagging indicator, but an indicator that we can look at for the ability of folks to sort of pay the bills that come forward. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Thank you, Councillor Henry. Through Mayor Jaworski. Yeah, good question. We're tracking pretty close to pre-pandemic levels on our penalties and interest, actually slightly below. And actually our arrears of our taxes are tracking about the same as they were pre-pandemic as well. So it's a good indicator that our taxpayers are paying their tax bills on time and not incurring penalty.
Thank you. I thought that would be sort of helpful, information for council to sort of be aware of, because it was only year over year, and I was curious about the before time.
Please go ahead, Councillor Bodley.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Jaworski. Just a question for you about the fifth recommendation down here about calling on federal and provincial governments to renew municipal supports and referencing the unfunded COVID deficit there. Can you speak to any is there any sort of advocacy either from AMO or from other municipalities around this? Because I presume we are not alone in this boat with respect to a COVID deficit. Any feedback you could provide there would be appreciated.
Thank you. To Councillor Bodley through Mayor Jaworski. It's a similar challenge that all municipalities are facing, obviously, as the pandemic isn't over. I know this advocacy was undertaken at AMO. I believe the direction there from the province was that there isn't additional COVID grant funding to be coming. And that's where we've outlined in the report that if we weren't successful in receiving additional grant funds, that we would look to cover it off through our tax rate stabilization reserve, which thanks in large part to the grant funds that we have secured up to this point. So the 8.84 million, we're in a relatively good place. We haven't had to draw on TRS up to this point. Looking at 3 years into the pandemic, this would be the first time that we would draw on that fund. So ideally, other levels of government have more ability to generate revenue to kind of cover this off than we do, and that's where that advocacy comes from. But we're planning to cover it from TRS otherwise.
That's great. Thank you, Brad.
Thank you. I see no further questions, so I'll just see if I have a mover and a seconder for this item. Moved by Councillor Henry, seconded by Councillor Bodley. Pause for a moment to see if there's anything in the chat line. I'm kidding. All those in favor? Okay, approved unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Item C, Project 25, also known as P25, Voice Radio Service Level Agreement. A report prepared for us by Chief Heptich. Does anybody have any quizzes for Chief Heptich? I see a lot of moving, which makes me nervous now, but nothing on the go. I don't think we have any questions for you, Chief. How you doing, though? Keeping good?
I'm very well. How about yourself, Mayor?
Good. I thought you'd just let you try the microphone for next time.
Great. Thanks for asking.
Yeah. I don't see any questions for the Chief. Anybody would like to move it? Moved by Councillor Hanmer, seconded by Councillor Freeman. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Item D, station area planning implementation, release of funding, prepared for us by Rick Martins, who I see approaching the bench. I don't even know what that's called anymore. I've been away for so long. Approaching the table. Does anybody have any questions on station area funding or station area plan implementation and the funding that's being released? Councillor Henry, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor, and Rick, we corresponded about this as well. I thought we should do this live. This is a substantial funding release. It will clearly make the internal teams work faster if there is land available to help advance these priorities. Public land in densifying spaces is something that we absolutely need, and it's part of existing plans. So appreciate the flexibility this drives. Can you speak to the overarching sort of governance of how sort of the funds end up getting utilized once they're released? What oversight does council sort of usually see over these kinds of implementation funds?
Through you, Mayor Jaworski, to the councillor. Yes, so the process will be similar to their city practices for obtaining land. So a committee of different departments in the city will be pulled together to identify lands. The stationary plans are the primary document that we'll use to identify potential candidate sites in different station areas. If a suitable site is selected through the staff level, we will come back to council to present those lands and seek approval to move forward with acquisition. So Yes, the committee is there really to identify lands, but the actual implementation will still need approval through council to release to go ahead and purchase.
Thanks. I think that's helpful information on how this will be managed.
Please go ahead, Councillor Vasek.
I feel like it's all new again. Like I'm nervous, like when we first started. Through you, Mayor Jaworski, Rick. So the Parkland Dedication Reserve Fund, what will that look like after this is taken out? If it's approved, will there still be a substantial amount of money in there for opportunities across the rest of the city? Can you speak a little bit to the cushion in there?
Through you, Mayor Jaworski, yes, I might refer to Brad for some of those, but I believe that this funding is separate from the parkland, but I will confirm. Yeah.
To Councillor, sorry, I'm a little nervous as well. So through Mayor Jaworski to the councillor's question. Yes, so the funding release is within the 2020 to 2022 approved capital budget. So these funds are planned for. So after accounting for the release of these funds, the Parkland Dedication Reserve will have about 10.8 million remaining at the end of this calendar year. And on December 12th, Finance will be bringing forward the normal reserve and reserve fund update, which will provide all reserve balances over the 10-year period, along with the 2023 budget. But budgeted funds and just releasing as per normal process. So all good on the PUB front.
Thank you.
I do not see any further questions, so I might look to a councillor to move the motion. Moved by Councillor Vasek, seconded by Councillor Hanmer. All those in favor? It's all of us. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Moving on to item E, council remuneration, the security system reimbursement. Report prepared for us by our clerk, Julie Scott, available for questions should there be any. Does anybody have any questions on that? Please go ahead, Councillor Bonagor.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Jaworski. So, Ms. Scott, I just was wondering, this is part of one of the things that you've brought forward as a potential to help future councillors should they feel the need. Was there also some changes to the public availability of private addresses? Like, were there some changes made to that as well?
Through the chair to Councillor Bonagor. Yes, starting this election, we're no longer publishing the nomination forms for members of council online. That being said, they are a document that we're required to make publicly available to anyone that wishes. And so it's not that information couldn't be accessed. It's just that we're not placing that online as a means to really stop any sort of activity where the data may be mined and then used beyond the period of time that it's intended for, which is just during that nomination and campaign time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Vasek, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for you, Mayor Jaworski. Have you, since putting this out in the public, because it has got a little bit of interest, have you received pushback from residents in any way? Have you received support? Just curious what the sentiment about it is more generally.
Through the chair to Councillor Vasek, I've received one email with a concern, and I believe that there has been some positive response to this suggestion. I'm aware of those that have expressed this as a concern in the past regarding their own interest in potentially putting their names forward for elected office, and so this was seen as something positive. If it was creating a barrier for those to become involved in elected office, then it's an option that's available to them if they wish.
Great, thank you. I've been seeing support for it too, just on social media, so I wasn't sure if you got any direct, so good to know. Thank you.
Excellent. I think this is a good option for next term of council for any councillor who feels so inclined to have home security for their family. Councillor Freeman, please go ahead.
Through you, Mayor Jaworski. Yeah, I think I just wanted to share that I was a little bit not sure how I felt about this, in the sense that I'm not sure that I thought in the past. It's only ever happened once in my years of service that I really felt that my family was at risk. And when that did happen, it would have been really a welcomed piece to have this in place. I can say that there was discussion about putting something like this in place at the time. But what saddens me, and what really in my mind's eye underpins this coming to us, is the change in how people see elected positions in Canada. And when I first got elected, the emails that came through to me were from people that were genuinely interested in seeking advice and help. And they sent me emails that demonstrated that we were colleagues and that we were working together, citizens and council, and that their concerns mattered to me. And then something changed. I don't know. It was around 2010, 2014 that everything changed. The emails that were sent to me just included so much foul language, abusive comments, harassment, comments that related to ownership over me as a person, as opposed to asking me to consider this in my decision making. It suggested that that I didn't actually care about what people thought, and some of those emails were just so unkind that they do keep you up at night, even if you don't want them to, even if you try to parcel them into the category of, wow, someone's having a really bad day and I hope that they have a better day tomorrow. They're really hurtful. And then, you do get to that point where you stop wanting to go out the front door. Because, like on occasion, I have literally told my husband, I'm taking the dog for a walk. And he has said, you are not going to that person's house. It's not safe. And I said, I am going to that person's house because if they can write it in an email, they can say it to my face. And I just, it just makes me sad. It makes me sad that we're here and we're having this conversation. It makes me sad to think that someone might not feel safe to run for city council because they fear for the safety of their family. That makes me really sad. And so I will support this from the position of providing support to someone who's worried about that. I'll support it in case myself or my colleagues need to be able to tap into this in the future. I hope I won't need to. I really do. I've gone with four-legged security systems for a number of years. 3 times 4 legs, 3 dogs. But there's a lot of folks that wouldn't be able to do that too. So thank you, Julie, for putting this together and for thoughtfully providing insight into the reasons for developing it. And I just wanted to share those comments.
Thank you. And I saw Councillor Bonagor had her hand up. Please go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Jaworski. Yeah, I also just had a few comments. And to be honest, when this first came forward, I didn't really want to support it because I didn't want it to be needed. I didn't want this to be part of a consideration for a future councillor. But, all in all, it's a fairly small amount of funding overall, and it's not up to me to decide whether a future councillor feels the need for this. Similar to Councillor Freeman, there have been a couple of incidents in my term where I've worried that my address is public, and I've worried when my kids are playing at the front, and it's been in the back of my mind. And these times pass, and it's not all the time. Like, I want people who are running for office and who are thinking of running for office to know that, yes, we are discussing this now, and yes, we are concerned that in the future someone might feel the need to use this reimbursement policy. But this is still a great place to live, and it's still a welcoming community. It's just something has changed in the tenor of discourse. And councillors, I don't think the public realises that staff are wonderful. We love you all. But there's not a lot of support for us as individuals in terms of just managing the workload. So those emails that people send because they're angry and frustrated and at the end of their rope, and they send a fairly abusive email, it's not a staff person that vets these. We open them as we're eating our breakfast and helping our kids get ready for school and do these things. And it does affect your relationship with the electorate. It does affect your relationship with the city. And yet we persist. We persist in loving the place. We persist in serving the place. So I'm also going to support this, even though I wish I didn't have to.
With that, I will call the vote. All those in favor? That carries unanimously. Oh, please go ahead, clerk.
Mover and a seconder, please.
I'm
Got
happy
so
to.
excited.
I'm happy to
Moved
move.
by Councillor Hammer, seconded by Councillor Freeman. All those in favor? That is all of us. Thank you very much for that clerk-wise advice. Moving on to questions. Does anybody have any questions of staff? We're done the staff reports. We'll move into questions of staff. First up, Councillor Bonagor, please go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Jaworski. I was just hoping to ask staff if we could please get a verbal update on the implementation of the speed reduction plan. Thank you.
And what good fortune to have Christine here today, milling about.
Mayor, through you, if I could just make a couple of remarks before Christine provides the details for Councillor Bonagor. Staff are working hard on that particular item. More time is needed, and again, I'll let Christine speak to the specifics. But as Council may also know, this is probably one of her last Council meetings after having served the city so well for the past 35 years. So on behalf of the corporation and specifically the Integrated Planning and Public Works Department, I want to thank her personally for all the support she's lent to me, to her staff, to the city, and the community over the past 3.5 decades. You worked very hard, Chris. You should be proud of your accomplishments, and we're going to miss you when you retire. Thanks, Mayor.
You realize, Ron, you just cursed it. Now she's going to be on every agenda going forward, so be here all the time. Go ahead, Christine.
Thank you very much. And now it's been the nervous part. Now I have to answer the question and have thought process. So thank goodness I have a few notes. So there was a commitment from staff to make the best efforts to bring an implementation plan back to council this fall for the 30 kilometers. Based on a number of factors beyond staff control, more time is required to properly complete the phasing and the implementation plan. As a result, the report has been delayed and will be presented to council in early 2023. So it won't be me. There are several outstanding items that we need to resolve before returning to council, including but not limited to bylaw amendments are required for council approval of the change in the speed limits. Coordination with the City of Kitchener for our border streets, because City of Kitchener streets will be 40 kilometers. Additional time to evaluate the technical impacts on the city's transportation network, including bus routes, the school transition zones, signage locations, and other field conditions. The development of a comprehensive community education and outreach plan, and a full evaluation of all the expenditures needed to implement the reduced speed limits. Additional funding for the installation of these signs will also be added to the 2024 to 2026 capital budget to make sure that the project is completed in 2025. And we are currently targeting January 2023 to return to council with a detailed progress report.
Well, no, continue. Okay, so you're done your line of questioning? Okay. And if not, I know Councillor Henry has a hand up too. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. Sorry, I was just digesting everything you said. Thank you, by the way, for the update. And I know that as part of the plan, it's the local roads that will be 30, collectors would stay at 40 or 50, and regional roads aren't affected. So as part of that phase-in, is that also planning to kind of ascertain which collectors would be 50, which would be 40?
Through you, Chair, to the councillor, yes, we have to. There are some streets that are giving us a little bit of a challenge because we're not sure exactly how we're going to manage them. Laurelwood Drive would be an example. We have 50, 40, 30, 40, 50 all along it. So we need to have a plan to be able to figure out what is the best method and how we can manage that. Because of the schools along Laurelwood, we need to sit back and take a look at the street and see exactly what is the best speed limit for the street as a whole, and then take it into the chunks.
Excellent. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. And I think Councillor Henry, you go ahead.
It's on a new matter, so if Councillor Freeman was following on this.
Okay, Councillor Freeman, then I'll come back to Councillor Henry. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Mayor Jaworski. And thank you, Christine, for the update, and also congratulations on your retirement. I really appreciate the thoughtfulness that's going into thinking about this. If people recall, I was very much on the 50-50 of whether or not I wanted to support 30. And I think I've sufficiently had the life beat out of me by the people in my ward that I would really like to reconsider the streets in my ward and what they should be set at. So I'm hopeful that through the process that you go through, I don't know whether you can do it kind of ward specific. Like, I'd really like to have a public meeting within the different neighborhoods so that I can get feedback from actual folks that live in the neighborhoods. I mean, some of these little streets, like the courts and such, it's very hard to pick up speed beyond 30. But on major roads like Chesapeake, East Bridge Boulevard, New Hampshire, New Bedford, I know that my ward would like to have a bigger community conversation about that. Maybe Kings Court Drive, Red Fox, Fox Hunt. That's another example. Whistler, the major kind of ins and outs of the old Abbey Whistler neighborhood. So like I'm really not like, I think there's been a lot of, the communication on this piece was a real challenge because, the survey wasn't an independent survey. It was kind of just anyone who wanted to participate survey. And what I kind of took away from the survey was that the majority of people wanted lower speed limits of some ilk. And so, I would really like to revisit that for my ward for sure.
And I'll take that as a comment. Okay, thank you. I say thank you, Christine, but we'll see what Councillor Henry has up his sleeve. Please go ahead.
I haven't had sleeves this long and this thick in a while either. So it's,
first day wearing pants for me.
It's hard to see. There might be a 20 in here somewhere that I forgot about 3 years ago. Similar to Councillor Bonagor's question, just picking up on project status of items that came to council earlier this year and were targeted for fall, but I'm aware that they're not going to hit fall, and I was wondering if staff could provide an update, particularly on on the cycling separation along Columbia. I know that was a hot topic when it came back here, and staff are going to go away and do some work. And the goal was to bring back a funding strategy to deal with that this year. But I was wondering if staff could update council and the public on the revised status of that item and what it looks like.
Most certainly, through Chair Jaworski to Councillor Henry. We were developing a plan to install separated cycling facilities on Columbia from King to Hagee as an interim solution until we could figure out a longer term plan. However, the region have a capital project to install a 400 millimeter diameter regional water main on Columbia between Westmount and King. And they're starting the design this year, and they have construction planned for 2024 to 2026. So given the fact that the water main is expected to impact any work that we would do for a separated cycling facility, we've decided to hold off on that and wait until, make it a package with what the region's doing, take advantage of the fact that they're going to be taking out our asphalt and put in proper separated cycling facilities at that time. In the interim, and I don't know if it happened last week or if it's happening this week, we will be adjusting some of the lanes in the section between King and Albert to provide a painted buffer. So similar to the other sections, giving a little bit more protection for the cyclists in the interim.
No, I think that's helpful, Chris, and certainly you don't want to throw away funds that we didn't budgeted. So budgeting funds and being more efficient makes a lot of sense. Is the advantage here also that instead of ending at Hagee, we're looking at all the way to Westmount, and so we have a much longer facility that will be better connected to the network on the west side? Yeah. No, I think that's very helpful information to be able to share. And I didn't know about the buffer part. That will at least help me on part of my journey, along with the countless others that I sort of see lining up on Columbia these days.
Councillor Freeman, please go ahead.
Through Mayor Jaworski, in the same vein of updates, this is really my first opportunity to say to staff, just thank you for all the investments that you've made in the city over the COVID time period. It's been amazing. You have really stepped up. You've leaned into the use of the 3-year budget, and just the work that's happened in the city, across the city, is just so impressive. So thank you for that. In my ward, there's 2 things that I'm curious to know about. So still kind of on the active transportation network, but I don't think it falls in your category. It's with regard to the pathway that goes between Dearborn Avenue and it's not Blue Springs. It's the little street that's next to the Canadian Tire. So we were putting in a new culvert and some other things, and I was hoping to get an update on that. And then just to give Jeff a heads up, I wanted to get the update on the active sports park at RIM, the new bike park. So that's my second question.
The Four-Well Creek Trail Connector, yes, I used it often before it fell into the water.
Through you, Mayor Jaworski, to Councillor Freeman. Thanks, Councillor Freeman, for your question. And as Councillor Henry said, yeah, we refer to that as Ped Bridge Crossing number 72, I believe. And it is under reconstruction now. It's a little bit bigger project than we anticipated because of all the underground utilities that needed support, and they needed to be reconstructed, a water main, there's a high pressure gas main and things in there. But it is moving forward, and we're hoping to have it opened up before the end of this construction season.
Can you remind me, if someone can remind me, is that one of the priority ones that we plow, the Four-Well connection, or is it just the Hillside Trail? I just wasn't sure.
Through you, Mayor, that's an excellent question, Councillor Freeman. My understanding was that we were plowing it, but maybe Jeff can help us out with the specifics on that one.
Sorry, Councillor, could you repeat the question, please?
The path that we're reconstructing across the Four-Well Trail, it crosses, it goes from Dearborn Avenue through to the Canadian Tire Store. It was the old Forwell Road, or I guess it was the old Lexington road alignment. Yeah, and it is one of the priority ones that we plow, I'm pretty sure, right?
It is. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah. So my second question is about that really exciting dirt bike and everything.
Absolutely. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, our new pump track, which is actually the first pump track in the region, will be opening later in October. We're aiming for mid-October. We're holding off on some small concrete work to be done this week. We may not have green grass. However, it will be open, and we're already getting a lot of interest in the track, and it's open for all ages.
Just to close the loop on that, I'm so excited about that opening. And I've got people who are driving by it and checking in to say, when can we start riding it? But if anyone will remember, some years ago, there was a gentleman by the name of Clive that ran against me, and that was his number one thing that he wanted. And I remember promising him after the election that somehow or another we will make that happen at RIM, because it was such a great location for it. So shout out to Clive, and thank you very much for making it happen.
And if you'll recall from the State of the City, it's pronounced pump track. It was a joke I was trying to make at the State of the City. Maybe it didn't go over very well. The pump track and woonerf, like those words. Where am I? Are we done? I feel like we're done. Any more questions? No more questions? Any new business? Councillor Bonagor, please go ahead.
I just wanted to talk about two awesome things that happened uptown on the weekend, and one that happened today. So on the weekend, we had the powwow in Waterloo. Well, we didn't have. The powwow was held in Waterloo Park, and it was phenomenal. It was fantastic. There were so many people who attended, and it was just this beautiful coming together of so many people in in joyous unity with the Indigenous people of the land, and they are so gracious to share all of this beauty with us. And it was just a really wonderful time to everyone be together again. And then later that night, the city was full of people for Lumen. It was amazing. So to the arts and culture team and everyone who was involved and all of the volunteers, like, hats off to you, because it was stunning. It is like the highlight of the arts and culture year for me and my family. And I could see just absolute joy radiating from so many people. So it was heaps of fun. There was so much activity that people absolutely loved it. So good work, team. You earned, I believe, your 1 day off that you get to make up for that huge event. And then the final piece of new business happened today. Just over in Waterloo Park, the boardwalk is now open. So I'm very excited. It's great. The mayor and I were able to have a preview walk along it last week. I encourage everyone to wander down and go along it. And next year is when you'll be able to be enjoying the north side as well. But the project is coming along really well. The boardwalk is fantastic, and it is now open for humans, not just geese.
It was a great tour by Ron, by Francis's team, Ron. It was a great tour. I had another hand up, Councillor Vasek, I think.
Yesterday I had the opportunity to go to the Awards of Excellence that was put on by the Caribbean Canadian Association of Waterloo Region and the Congress of Black Women Waterloo Region. And it was there was an opening speech by Michelle Jean, the former Governor General. Very cool. I think everyone was pretty starstruck. She's very down to earth, it seemed, in her presentation too. Then there was a delicious lunch. Lots of people just, I think, excited to connect with people they hadn't seen since before the pandemic and longer even. And then there was an awards ceremony where people in communities in town provide scholarships for young Caribbean, African, Black youth in the community for their post-secondary education, and there were a green energy engineer, lots of athletes, so very well-rounded people, future accountants and lawyers. And then really important, because we know that Black maternal health is very bad, with Black women often dying or suffering much more in their maternal health than white folks. So there's also a nurse and then also a midwife student there who is the only Black woman, after a big run around to actually get into a midwifery program, is now the only Black woman in her program, and is looking to not only be a midwife, but also organize so that there's a community around Black midwives. So very exciting, very ambitious, well-spoken youth in the community. And I say well-spoken because I think they were like more succinct than I was, and they're only 20 years old. So I was very impressed. A really exciting event. I was really glad to go.
Thank you. And I will note that the Oktoberfest market is taking place this Saturday at right out here, City Hall parking lot, 10 until 4. 50-some vendors, all kinds of fun. Come on down and have a good time. Anything else for new business? Seeing none, I'll move us along to bylaws, to enact some bylaws. Come on, Councillor Bodley. Has your name on it. Moved by Councillor Bodley, second by Councillor Freeman. All those in favor of the bylaws? That carries. Did I bug you before? I've been bugging you for so long. I don't remember if before COVID I started doing that or not. Really? Okay. Oh. Celebrating 4 years of bugging Councillor Bodley coming up. Motion to adjourn, moved by Councillor Vasic, seconded by Councillor Bonagor. All those in favor? That carries unanimously. Thank you very much to the team of the clerks for having hybrid meetings for 2.5 years. Much appreciated.